Welcome to Visions to Ventures. I am an avatar created to explain the benefits of AI and ChatGPT for entrepreneurs and creators. ChatGPT is an advanced AI-powered tool that can greatly benefit creators and entrepreneurs. With ChatGPT, you can leverage the power of artificial intelligence to enhance your productivity, creativity, and problem-solving capabilities. It can assist you in generating content ideas, refining your marketing strategies, and providing valuable insights. By utilizing ChatGPT, creators and entrepreneurs can save time and effort by automating repetitive tasks and obtaining quick answers to their queries. It can help in creating engaging and personalized content for your audience, improving customer interactions, and enhancing overall user experiences. With its language generation capabilities, ChatGPT can generate compelling copy, brainstorm new ideas, and assist in crafting persuasive messages. Furthermore, AI technology like ChatGPT can analyze large amounts of data, identify patterns, and provide valuable recommendations. It can assist in market research, competitive analysis, and identifying emerging trends. This allows creators and entrepreneurs to make data-driven decisions, stay ahead of the competition, and seize opportunities for growth. In summary, ChatGPT empowers creators and entrepreneurs with AI capabilities to streamline their workflows, boost productivity, and unlock new possibilities. It offers the potential for enhanced creativity, improved efficiency, and valuable insights, enabling individuals to achieve their goals and succeed in their ventures.
All right, everyone. This is the final episode of Business to Venture, season 1. So I'm gonna, like I mentioned in my previous episode, where I discussed that we're gonna be talking about kind of educating on the technology that's out there. So this one is very interesting to me because I want to be talking about AI, and I, have a good friend of mine, Jen, who is very knowledgeable on that.
Maybe.
but no, we're going to discuss how we use it, in our day-to-day also business, and kind of give you that educational. So, Jen, if you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself, give more details or whatever you want to share.
Sounds good. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I would say it's an honor, and just excited to talk to you today. I would say so. A little bit about me. I like to kind of talk about the fact that it's like we're the first sort of first generation in the United States. I come from Venezuela, but and I mention this because I think that there's so many things when you think about business and mentality and just so many things that are different, and things that my son and my sons will go through is just completely different than what I think our generation has also gone through. We've been in the US for about like 30 years or so. So it's definitely just been interesting to grow.
Yeah.
Aside from that, and where I think we'll probably spend a lot of time talking about AI is as my profession, so my career, I'm a UX researcher. I would say right now I'm living my dream job. I absolutely love what I'm doing. And kind of, I'm in a unique space right now where I'm interested to see where in the long term. So I'm doing a lot of the things that I like, and now starting to have a lot of conversations of where do I take this next? So I think it comes exactly at a perfect time for where is technology going, where, something like AI, where can it take us and help us and continue to get better, especially in the UX space.
All right. I'm going to pretend there's some notes in here. No, I'm just kidding. So I know AI is right. So I kind of want to give a bit of a background. Is with AI, there's ChatGPT, GPT, there's Google Bard, and then there's Microsoft Copilot. And of course, there's other companies that are going to come out with their own type of AI as far as artificial intelligence. So how has it since, when would you say that it has impacted your career or your life as far as?
So funny that you say that. I think that I want to say like maybe like 6, 7 months, it just became
Okay.
like the buzzword,
Yeah.
right? Like the buzzword was like AI, chat GPT,
Hmm.
all the way from like my manager to like our CEO, like
Yeah.
sending out things. And I think everyone started getting very excited about what is a possibility and what can we do. So I would say, as far as an impact, I started playing around with chat GPT. So like you said, there's various
Hmm.
different ways, but the way that I started to get my feet wet a little bit was with chat GPT, and just starting to understand a little bit of what were its capabilities. Because I think when you first go in, you're like, no, like this
Hmm.
is crazy.
Yeah.
But it was quite shocking, I would say, as much as, and we can, dive into it as much as you want, but I think how it helped in my day to day. I would say, fast forward to your point, I am seeing a lot of our tools that we utilize in our day to day for research starting to one way or another starting to introduce an AI component,
Hmm.
whether it be through like sentimental analysis, note taking, and so on and so forth. So I think, again, we're still at the early stages,
Yeah.
but the impact that AI is making is great, and I can see it just continuing to grow from here.
Okay. Um, so I know, so kind of going into, for me, and there's other AIs too. So I think one of the AIs that I plan on using is editing the videos.
Uh-huh.
Um, but how do you kind of use that like now to your advantage, right? Because for me, it's always talked about like there's fear in behind AI. Where like, oh, AI is going to take over,
Mm-hmm.
your job, or it's going to do this. But I feel like for me personally, it's just makes it easier.
Yeah.
It's kind of helped me cut down time on the titles, the description of the episodes and stuff like that. So for you, how has that what's the benefit from?
So I will say, like, interestingly enough, just last week, I posted a question on a Slack channel to our team because I joined, like, as a side, like a ton of like conferences for research. But it
Mhm.
just so happened that one of the blogs that I had subscribed to brought up a question of, in the future, because there's fear, just as you said,
Mhm.
right? So in the future, do you think that UX will just become tools and technology that anyone can use?
Mhm.
Specifically, UX research. And I think that while it didn't necessarily bring up AI, I think that, as you mentioned, it's kind of like that fear that's starting to bubble of like, oh my gosh, can I be replaced, or can this be
Yeah.
replaced? I tend to be actually on the same side as you. I don't fear AI being able to replace my role or me as a person. I'm
Mhm.
actually really excited because the way that it's made me faster and become more efficient is because it actually does a lot of admin things,
Mhm. Yeah.
or like things that I tend to, even down to like verbiage, as you mentioned. For example, like different methodologies. In my case, I do a lot of, let's say, like surveys, interviews. So AI has been a key tool that now I'm utilizing, where I'm giving it prompts to be able to rely on, give me different ways to ask questions.
Mm.
This is a survey. This is exactly what I want it to be about. This is the type of survey, the type of questions that I'm actually looking for. And what I mean by type is whether it's from a qualitative or quantitative
Mhm.
perspective. And ChatGPT has helped me greatly to be able to do that. So that's where I see it as, it's been a great tool, something that I would spend, honestly, like, we'll put it like an hour, and
Mhm.
on an average, because I'm a person that it's like, okay, well, I'm going to put together a 6 question survey. Then I go back and go through, okay, which type of questions am I
Yeah.
going to be utilizing? I want to be sure that they're non-leading questions. Am I being biased? Am I being, so all of these different
Yeah.
things that I'm going through, that takes quite some time to be able to build a perfect
Yeah.
survey. Where if I go to ChatGPT, I give it a few prompts, it removes all of that for me. And now all I have to do is say, I like this question. Let me rewrite this one.
Mhm.
Actually, give me more concise. And it's now like having an admin that's
Oh
helping me,
yeah.
which I absolutely love.
I guess I never thought about that, right? Because for me, when I'm trying to, and I want to go back, right? It's not just like jumping into just the chat GPT, because a lot of people might assume, or I assumed before, it's like I'm gonna ask like how I'm Googling stuff, right? But
Yeah,
it's not that, because you have to
yeah,
kind of be descriptive about how you're
absolutely.
trying to get to your point, but then also getting to then still editing as you're going, because it's
Hmm.
not perfect. AI is still I feel like in the process of development ish, but like also where it's the more data we put into it, the better. the solution's going to be.
Well, I love that you said that, because at the beginning I would be like, can you please do this? And then the response back, I mean, along with the prompt, but it's like, it's an awkward interaction at first that you're like, how do I ask a question and how do I begin?
Yeah.
So, and then I would love when the AI would come back like, certainly, here is,
Yes.
So I think that they do try to humanize it and make it as comfortable as possible. And I mean, the different companies that are focusing on AI, but I completely agree with you. I think that I love the aspect that it's being able to humanize it a little bit. I get all the different concerns that other people have, but for me, it's been nothing but positive. And I would say, I think along the way, one thing that I always think about, and I guess in my case, right, for me, it's different. I do work for a company. So, and always just being careful that I'm never sharing like any sort of like private information. For me, definitely, even when it comes, and maybe can get into it a little bit more, but because one of the areas that I'd love to see AI just continue to grow is an analysis. For us as a researcher, it's huge, especially when I'm thinking back of like all the interviews and transcripts that I'm looking at. Because even if I'm taking notes, or even if I have someone taking notes, I still want to go back to the interview and take clips to be able to compile insights for executives. That takes a long time. So, however, then you start getting into that world of balance of what am I willing to share with a tool like this that could potentially be storing information that might be proprietary for a company.
And that's kind of, I mean, now going back, it's like you bringing that up. I know it's kind of the big talk in, in the tech world is like, who's holding data? How, comfortable are you with sharing? And then that's the reason some companies are kind of like holding back with their employees to like, hey, use this information, put the information on there, because then you might be giving out information that's really confidential or that you don't want to share. So I think having that balance and kind of knowing someone like you, right, where you are, okay, this is, I feel like it's all right to put on there.
Yeah.
And, but also, okay, the other things I'll have to kind of do it on my own just to make sure that nothing is put out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
No, I love it.
For so I know you mentioned UX. I don't know if did you kind of, what's the whole UX like? Because I know
UX. No, so UX, yes. Currently,
is it, because I can't remember. I took some like coding back then, and I totally. But I think it's user experience. Right?
It is user experience. Okay. Yes. So UX. So user experience researcher. So the UX world is essentially the study of how users, in this case, like it could be a client or just that key individual that's utilizing that product. Okay. Right? And the product can be anything. So UX really is a study of how that particular user is interacting with that product, whether it's satisfying and meeting their needs. Now, when it branches off, right, it has different areas within UX. I specifically focus in research. And with that being said, I actually get the opportunity to be able to get to know our users, get to understand what their challenges are and what their motivators are. Like, what are the outcomes that they're trying to look for? And then I think that the best part, and this is why I love like what I do, is because I kind of get to sit in the middle where I bridge the gap between so product manager or like engineers think users need, what users think they need versus what they actually need. And so I think, it takes definitely a skill. And this is why I kind of, to bring it back to AI, is being able to go to AI and say, I want to be able to, give me an example of, I don't know, let's say like task oriented questions for like XYZ process. So I'm able to kind of bring it and tie it back to methods within UX and specific to research. And then I'm able to learn of like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it that way. I didn't think of asking the question this way so that it wasn't non-leading. Or I didn't think of perhaps like if I'm doing a usability test. Yeah. I didn't think of being able to actually put that task. So I think I don't know. I'm really, really excited to see where it goes, specifically in the UX world. Yeah. Like you said, I'm not a designer. I work with a ton of designers, but I get excited where I think it's ChatGPT like 3 or 4 that you have the ability to be able to upload like images. And so I actually want to explore that a little bit further for wireframes and prototypes. Because imagine in a world where I'm not necessarily putting something so like high fidelity, something just more lo-fi that I can go in and show a user. It says, was this what you were talking about?
Yeah,
Or let's
no.
kind of pick this apart a little
Yeah,
bit.
no, it's good. Yeah. And the reason like I wanted you to go more detailed is because it kind of explains more of the part of your job, but also kind of how that branches off into how you want it. You're seeing it where it's going to go for your type of
Yeah.
career, or just kind of what you do. Because I mean, I feel like eventually, as you're looking into this, you're like, you know what? I feel like I can start a company out of this.
Yep.
You know, I have all the tools now, and then the knowledge, and I can kind of branch off and do my own thing. And I think it's really needed. And which also brings back, they're still going to need that human connection.
Always.
No matter how advanced. For me personally, my opinion is like, you need to have that human, interaction, and to kind of make people feel comfortable in that, and then not just like, oh, I got to share all that information with the AI.
Always. And I'll give you an example. So I guess to kind of answer your second question or second comment is, one of the tools that I utilize, I think I mentioned, for like housing, so more like a repository for interviews, and a lot of data that we gather during research. Anywho, but this is like my main analysis tool that I utilize every single day. I noticed, I think this is probably about a month ago or so, that they introduced a beta version of like their AI, or like say a beta of their AI version.
Okay.
And this is specifically to sentiment analysis. So when we go in and sentiment, it's important for us because we could be having a conversation, but as a user researcher, I'm not only, I have to be hyper aware of not only what you're telling me, how you're answering, where we're going to go next, but also how are you reacting, like even physically, to something we're talking about. So I think it's almost like that. I read a book before, but it's like the question behind the question, like being able to really understand what's going on. Anywho, that aside, this tool is introducing sentiment analysis, and I'm like, let's go for it. Let me just see and test it out and see if this would really help me. Specifically because one of the processes that I take when analyzing is tagging. So I go through the whole interview and tag to be able to just organize the interview and the conversation. When I allowed the AI to go through the sentiment analysis, it essentially just looked for different keywords, like anytime like no, I don't like. So anything that it connected with a negative connotation, it added as bad or like a challenge versus a positive sentiment. In turn, let's say out of an interview, I may have, I don't know, like one conversation. Let's say that I could have like on average like 10 to 15 tags on the interview, because I'm tagging that whole conversation of that clip. This is the versus what the AI went and did. It's, let's say they said, I don't like XYZ. It tagged that sentence. It ended up giving me like 100 tags to go through. So, which again, it's great that you're able to do that, but it's giving me more things that I have to now actually do a lot more work. So now I have to go through and see like, are these really? So anywho, that's I think an example of like where I completely agree with you. I think that it's fantastic to have as a tool, but you're always going to need that human interaction to be able to really say, or that human touch to say, yes, this is correct, or actually this is not what I was looking for.
And I think there's, eventually it's as that is needed. I mean, I know like it might be going into more data that's not needed at the moment, but eventually, right, it's like someone's going to say, hey, we actually do need that data now, or can we go more in depth into that? And so and that's where you're like, at the moment, you know what, it's good. I see that it's thinking ahead, but like, at the moment, I just need it for X, Y, and Z, not that.
If I could describe like my ideal world of what it could look like, because you kind of touched into a little bit, is having the ability to be able to do what I do right now of uploading all my different interviews, but how great it could be of if I asked a prompt of, when asked this particular question, can you give me quotes of what each participant talked about? And then can you also, put this in a table format, and give me, let's say, for example, like actionable insights that you saw along with each of these conversations. So being able to provide all of those prompts right away, and AI being able to provide that to me, that would take away like the biggest part of the analysis. I would still have to go back because I still want to be able to see if there's anything else I could find. But imagine if we're trying to have like see themes very fast, see like whether it's like market analysis.
Yeah.
Like I've been focusing very hard on interviews, but there's all sorts of research that imagine if your data set is like 1,000 items plus,
Yeah.
that AI can absolutely help you with that.
That's
So I don't know. I get really excited about what the future could
Yeah.
look like. And I hope that I can continue to utilize it more in my day to day.
Yeah. See, and this is for me what I like is, and also coming into like recording this episode with you, you know, it's just not, it wasn't just like, okay, hey, let's just market, you know, the what's out there, because now there's more into it, right? You're going into like how it's actually being used and stuff. For your where you work at, and myself for my business. But kind of something that for the listeners and viewers, what would you tell them, like, as far as how can they, like, where do they have to start? Like, how, you know, kind of, do they go to ChatGPT and type in like how they're going to Google, or how is it that, you know, that you would kind of, sorry, I'm like going back and forth, but but how is it like that you kind of would advise them to use the AI for them?
I think it's a great question, because I feel like I kind of going back, I would say I haven't utilized it in my personal life, however, much.
Yeah.
But I think is
It's like, ChatGPT, how can I tell my husband to go?
how can you like tell him to go pick up the trash, please?
Without telling him.
Without really telling him, without
like,
being like so passive aggressive. Just kidding, no. But I think that where a lot of the things were, so I could go in and I during the times when like I don't use, and where I say I don't use it for my personal life, and it's not always just like something specific, like very a task or a project that I have. I've had conversations with AI where I actually say, hey, this is the name of my company. Can you tell me what are the top competitors?
Oh, yeah.
And then can you talk to me about what are some of the things? So I think that, you know, for me specifically, I do a lot of market and secondary research. However, for an individual that just wants to, I think as an entrepreneur, or if you're just curious, if you have this idea that you want to be able to get to know more about, going in and talk to me about, let's say it's candle making. Cool. Can you talk to me, you know, who are currently the top manufacturers of candle making? And can you talk, you know, and start there. AI is going to give you a list. You can continue to interact with it of maybe something like a prompt. Can you give me a table format, which also includes revenue and what their last year like revenue was versus whatever, you know? I think starting to get comfortable with how, because AI will either say, yes, this information is available, or it's not available. I think this is actually a great time, especially for entrepreneurs, to be able to utilize AI, because many companies do publish their earnings. They publish a lot of their business goals and visions of where they want to go. So what better way of, I'm a very much why reinvent the wheel type of person. If anything, I want to be able to take your learnings and then be able to put my spin on it and, you know, work off of a lot of this. That's what secondary research is kind of all about. So anyway, I also kind of like a long roundabout way to say of being able to lose your fear a little bit and just start interacting with AI again, whether it be through an idea that you currently have and start to see what other people are doing. It can also even talk about like, what are the, can you, something like a prompt, like talk to me about like the most important steps when starting your business, or what are some things that you can, and you'll be surprised at what are some of the things that comes back with. You can also even ask like, what are some of your, I forget the word that I'm looking for, but
it always happens when you're
I hate when that happens. But like, for example, like asking like, where did you get this information from? Right. I know there's a word that just escaped me, and it'll give you, these are all the sites, or these are all the different references, perhaps like not for lack of a better word, like references of where you got this information. And then you can continue to follow. Let me continue to research now on my own. If you're iffy about, is this real? You can ask for those references.
Oh, that's good. And that's, see, like you're going more into like, also, which I like it, you having to not rely of it being, and I whole truthful, right? Because it's someone inputting that information, but you're like, okay, maybe I don't trust him, or maybe I'm using it for school or whatever it might be, and I want to make sure that I'm not just writing anything that's that doesn't have a reference to, or that can also hurt my grade, because now it's just based off something that AI created on its own without actually going back.
Of course, I think that's when you can start to get into trouble, right? I mean, I think just like anything, things can be abused. But I think if you are focusing and doing things the right way, it always includes just going a little bit further. And that's where I think that a lot of people will have success utilizing AI if they're using it as another tool in their tool belt rather than, oh, so and so, just write this resume for me or write this
Yeah.
report for me. Of course you can do that, but it's still an AI putting different words and what it thinks other people have used, and it'll patch that for you. It's not going to talk like you or act like how you would when you write a paper.
Yeah, and I think it's one thing I want to go back with say I mentioned school, but I think, and also I think also with the interview, right? Say if you're interviewing someone, then someone's also using AI to kind of how to be better at interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of putting those two together, where it's like it's hopefully making that person into a better interviewee, and kind of like using that information to better themselves. And I think it's all that, everything that's out there is just using it on the benefit, and not worrying about, so far, I mean, at the moment it is going to be the future, but also just embrace it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that with anything, it's probably good. I feel like we're kind of in the middle of where like the pendulum swinging to like hardcore, like where we're going with AI. There are some things that I still, and this is very specific to my sort of my lane in UX that I don't agree with. For example, there are some companies that are focusing on utilizing AI heavily for research in the sense of being able to interact with AI to say, put AI in a situation, I should say, of you are this particular user, and then this is the situation of what I'm going to be interviewing you for. Can you give me a transcript of what that interview could look like? So it's kind of like, instead of now interviewing an actual live user of your product, you're interacting with AI. I think there's a lot of people that say, or excuse, in this article that I was going through, and this individual that published, like, he went back and forth on the pros that he saw with something like that. I think that's when it can get dangerous, because again, you're not actually interacting with the person that would be the end user that could talk to you truly why. And when we talk about challenges and outcomes, these are questions that I get the opportunity to ask an individual that tell me how they're really feeling, like at the end of the day, or excuse me, when you come into your day, like your work day, what is the favorite thing? What is your favorite thing that you do at work? AI wouldn't be able to tell you that.
Yeah.
They don't know. So I think it's that sentiment where we can start to get a little bit, I know it's a little crazy. I think it's still from like a learning perspective, perhaps, because I think you kind of talked a little bit earlier of like, well, maybe I want to go into the UX world, but I have no idea, like, how can I interview someone? And I'm a little bit, I'm still learning. That could be a good tool where it's almost like you're having a little bit of exposure of what that conversation can look like until it's getting you ready to actually have the real conversation.
Jeez. So yeah, it's crazy, and I'm actually excited for more of it to come. Okay, so how do you kind of tell, when you hear about the tech jobs, people are like kind of getting laid off, and now I was reading an article where it's like, oh, it's AI is going to replace them. How would you kind of tell someone who's trying to get into tech, and also having that in the back of their mind, what would you kind of tell them to feel good about, hey, this tech company is really good, or how kind of like bring them back into knowing, hey, I know you're worried about that, but this is why I feel like it's not going to happen, or at least not at the moment, whatever it might be.
I think it is unfortunate, and I think it's a loaded question, because my heart says I should say what I truly believe is that the tech space, it will forever. I feel like there's a few different, when you look at the industry as a whole, there's definitely realms that I think will continue, or at least I believe in, that'll continue to grow, and that they'll always need people to be in that space, and which one of them being technology. And I think because perhaps when you ask them about what does a tech job look like, or maybe what are some roles in technology, certain roles come to mind. Maybe that's an engineer, like developer stuff, but there's a wide range of different roles within that space. At least from what I've been seeing so far, I don't think that AI can completely replace those roles. Again, I think that it could be in a different avenue. I think a good company will definitely implement or I should say a good company, like a smart company
Yeah.
would implement AI to have it be, for example, like sitting within, whether it be UX or even customer experience, like their CX
Mm-hmm.
organization, because it's a new funnel of like how you're bringing in data, rather than having an individual that's focusing on surveys to understand like who your customer is, going out into kind of, you know, the internet world to do secondary research and market
Mm-hmm.
analysis. You can have AI doing this for you specifically. You still need someone at the other end to be able to analyze what AI is giving you.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that it's taking your job completely. And I think that's where, again, in my mind, a smart company will be able to utilize it as a tool and be able to have someone that can actually still take in all of those gatherings, of all those insights that are being gathered by AI. Because in a world, even if AI, I mean, I guess, because what I continue to think about is that in a world where, let's say, AI is perfect, it goes out, you're
Mm-hmm.
able to give it prompts and it's continually gathering all this data for you. When it comes back, in what form is it going to be able to give it to you? Even if it's a document, even if it's a presentation, even if it's just whatever output
Yeah.
or artifact you ask it to give you, someone still has to review that. Because can you imagine that document going straight to like a stakeholder, an executive to be able to read off of?
Yeah.
A lot of, and I think a lot of things get missed. So maybe I hope this answers the question, because I think at the end of the day, layoffs have happened. I don't believe that they're going to be
Mm-hmm.
related to AI. I think it's just other unfortunate events.
And the reason it's for the loaded question, but it's also good because we see it from the perspective of like a tech person, also like, tech company area where it's like, yeah, like, going more in depth into that, and something that I wanted to kind of understand and figure out exactly what's going on, because I love tech, but I also, and that's where I'm like, okay, that I've heard it before. Someone told me, it's like, oh well, the business that you're going into as far as marketing or building websites and stuff like that is, it can go away, right? And I'm like, yeah, but I've also noticed that how it's being used for that, and it's kind of bringing ideas that I might not be thinking about in the moment, but it's also giving me ideas that, okay, I can base it off of that, but make it into my own type of way that I want to use it.
Well, it is funny that you say that, because it reminds me a lot of, I took like an intro to coding kind of class and like learned the basics of just like HTML and CSS and all that stuff. I wanted to just kind of side note, I was more of, wow, I don't know that I could ever do that.
Yeah.
There's so much. But the reason why I bring this up, it was fantastic of like where it stretched, but I'll never forget the instructor talking about, I think someone asked like, how can I ever, memorize all of these prompts? How can I ever like memorize? Like, this is a lot. And the instructor was really, I think she was very honest and said, a lot of these things, a lot of these sets of codes are everywhere online. And what a good engineer does is that you're going and you're utilizing and taking that code, because why would you be reinventing it? It exists already for a reason, and you can make it your own. You still have the ability to utilize that code to then kind of massage it and make it into building the website or whatever it is that you're building, your product that you want to be able to build it into. That's kind of how I see AI too. It's not why, again, be able to make yourself. I think it all comes down to work smarter, not harder, and AI can help you be a lot faster in removing those obstacle courses of things that you don't want to do to be able to then focus on the fun part of your job.
Jeez. You share very much, valuable information. What's something that you want to leave to the listeners and viewers out there as far as like, hey, AI is your friend, or whatever, you want to share about AI, and just about anything like that you want to personally share as well?
I think just try it. Like, for me, honestly, the message is, it's still early on. Like, I definitely am not an expert by any means. It's just all about getting your feet wet. I sign up for one of the free accounts. Go ahead and start just utilizing it. Don't be scared to start entering and putting information. I think whether it even be like, I saw a video of someone that was utilizing it even for like meal prepping.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know if you saw something like this, but it's just like, it was incredible how this person put in prompts to be able to ask AI to give, a week of what their meals could be, but then be able to organize it in a way that you could give me what are the instructions for this particular meal, what are the ingredients, and where I could find them.
Yeah.
So I think when you start thinking of, there's a large range of how you can utilize AI, that from, or if you're maybe in the beginning or early stages of your career and you want to be able to understand is, who are the individuals that I could follow? I did that. I actually went in, and now that I'm in an area where I am, like in currently in my career, is I had a conversation with AI of, talk to me about who are the top user researchers or more prominent individuals in the kind of in the business, we'll say, right? And so it gave me some individuals, and now some of them, which maybe, I didn't even know. So now I can go follow them and be able to learn from them. So I think it's, again, all about how you're seeing it and all about just losing that fear. Try it out. Get a free account. Check it out.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna bring more episodes. Hopefully we can also, as I'm going through this video and I'm like, okay, maybe I want to go more in depth, right? More in stuff like UX, because like as you were sharing, AI, then what fascinated me was the UX and how that's involved in your job, but also just in general and everything that for entrepreneurs. So I think there'd be more to come. You might hopefully, if Jen's okay with kind of doing another one, but I think it's great. I mean, thank you so much for all of the information you shared today, and again, you are closing off season 1. So that's, for me, it's a huge, it's very huge. So we're starting season 2, but it's going to be, posted later on. And so thank you so much, Jen, for
of course,
your time.
This was great. I think I'll just kind of leave it with, thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome just to be able to talk. Feels like, obviously, like I'm talking to a friend about, like, and kind of nerd out. I think it's hard to hold back of like, okay, Jennifer, don't like share, don't go like all out. But it's just because it's an area that I'm passionate about. I will also say, I think, like, listening to your podcast, I went back and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's talking to a bunch of entrepreneurs and individuals that own their business, something that I don't quite fit just yet. But this got me thinking. And I think that, and I'll share this if that's okay, since you said about UX. And I think that one of the things that I continue to think about is that as an UX researcher, or actually just being someone in corporate period, I learned about a new term, right? And I think this is in the conference that we went to together, as an entrepreneur. And I'm like, what is this? What's going on with this term? So, and I think it couldn't have fit the bill even more, because I think even though I may not necessarily have my own business at the moment, I do, like you said, think about things of like, where can I go in the future with this? Like whether, is it consulting or what's going on? So I think you still always have those thoughts. But as an entrepreneur, you still have to have those conversations of building the skill of presenting, this is what I believe in, and I still have to take this to my stakeholders and executives or where I go. So there's still that skill that I think you can practice anywhere, that it's very needed. So anyway.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because yes, it's kind of starting off, it's more the entrepreneur, but what I want people to also see, as I'm interviewing, even though you might say, oh, I don't own my own business, but in a way, the entrepreneur side of you, it's there, and it's just like kind of waiting for you to take that step of like, okay, I feel good about what I'm doing, and now I can use it like consultant and all that, right? But it's also building that connection, because we met at the conference. I know I know your husband for a long time, but it's just seeing that, okay, now I want to know who Jen is. What does she do? And also putting you into that network of like, if someone's like, oh my gosh, I really wanted to get into tech, but I really wanted to know UX, when they can know, oh, Jen, who was on this podcast has that valuable information. So it's not like, oh my gosh, and that's why I'm like, I'm going to have other people on here that might not own their business, but they have that knowledge of, that I feel like it needs to be out there, needs to be shown into and listened and viewed. So
I think I think it's great. I think that I wish this was something that it was available. It's not like I've been in UX my whole life. So when I think of like myself, even 10 plus years ago, I wish a conversation like this was available, where I could listen in and start to just pick up those nuggets. Because most recently I had a conversation with my leader, And we talked about of the facts of like when is it truly that I find myself the most engaged and the most happy in my role. And a lot of those conversations are when I'm actually going to present my ideas, and it isn't the regular like these are the projects that you have, or kind of, you know, going in and researching current features that the product that I'm focused on is moving forward with, but it's actually about me creating a plan, a business plan, and why I think we should be moving ahead with this. And I think it are all skills, like you said, we all have an entrepreneur inside of ourselves to be able to find our happiness and how do we push our career forward.
Yeah.
So I'm always happy to have those conversations.
So now it's saved, and
Yeah.
you know, it's like I can't remember who I told, but it's now it's that journal that they, you know, that digital journal that's saved, you know, that you can always go back, no matter, like, let's say if I stop this, you know, a couple of years from now or whatever, I decided to do something else, but I can go back and be like, this is, it's always going to be saved, you know. So I know it's always going to be there. So
Agreed.
and it started for me selfishly because like, oh, I want to know what people are doing or saying, but it's like no, and now it's out there for everyone. So
yeah, absolutely.
Jen, thank you
appreciate
so much.
it. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks.